Welcome to another episode of the Trusted Advisor podcast and video series powered by the Retail Solutions Providers Association. Our goal on the pod is to accelerate the success of today's and tomorrow's leaders in the retail IT industry. I'm Jim Roddy, back with you again. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a special quick take episode of the pod where for about 20-25 minutes, we feature one or two RSPA members who will speak at Retail Now 2022. Now, if you're not familiar with Retail Now, it's the Retail IT Channel's #1 trade show, education conference, and networking event scheduled for July 24th through 26th at the Gaylord Palms in Orlando. Retail Now will feature 6 education tracks and more than 20 education sessions, including one we'll discuss today titled Retail Now Live Lab, Social Media Strategies That Work. And we have 2 guests today to share some social media best practices with us. First, Karen Licker is the Director of Marketing for US and Canada for Evo Payments. She's worked in marketing most of her career, including being the founder of bankerstuff.com in 2007, where she was an early adopter of social media for financial institutions. Karen is also an active member of the RSPA Marketing Committee. Karen, welcome. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. And for those watching on YouTube, they're like, why isn't Karen on camera? You know how technology can be these days. Her camera is not working, but glad you can join us by audio. So our second special guest is Dorian Sandy, the Marketing Director for RSPA VAR member OSS Data based in Cooper City, Florida. That's between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. So Dorian started his career in legal advertising before expanding into insurance, fitness centers, and now the hospitality space. He's also working on his master's degree at the University of Miami, focusing on search engine optimization. Hey, Dorian, great to meet you and welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thrilled to have you both here. And Karen, you're in Florida as well, is that correct?
I am. I'm in Tampa. Yeah, sunny Tampa.
Great, wonderful. Well, I am all the way up north in Erie, Pennsylvania. And for those watching on YouTube and you're like, man, that is a drab background. It looks like I'm giving a deposition of some sort. It's just a gray wall behind me. This is the last pod we are recording in the Erie studios. Very shortly, I'm going to pack up the rest of our family's belongings and driving down to Raleigh, North Carolina. So the next podcast for the Trusted Advisor should be in the brand new Raleigh office, Raleigh studios. So again, thanks for those watching on YouTube putting up with my boring background here. So, well, let's get to the heart of the matter. So Karen, you've been the driver behind this session that's going to be at Retail Now, and I'm curious why you're describing it as a live lab. So like, how is it going to be different from a typical trade show education session?
Thanks, Jim. That's a great question. I know that we've all been to plenty of conferences, and they begin to look and feel the same after a while. You know, we're all familiar with the hour-long PowerPoint presentation, which is and can be very helpful. But social media is live. It's online real time. So we thought, why not marry the two instead of the planned spontaneity of social, if you will, really dive into social media accounts live, real time, and answer questions and provide feedback in a live real time setting.
Got it. So should folks like bring their phones with them and be ready to connect to the internet? Is it going to be something like that?
Well, that and up on the screen will actually, based on participants volunteering their social accounts, we'll type them in right there, pull them up on the screen so everyone can see and we can discuss and solicit feedback if participants are willing.
Oh, very cool. Very nice. All right. So it will very much have a workshop aspect to it, and not with prepared materials, but with the folks who are in the room. All right. Sounds very good. So thank you for that background. And so can we talk about, because this is the question I always run into where executives are talking like social media is just a bunch of busy work, right? But they don't know about the outcomes. So Dorian, if you can take this one first. So like, what outcomes can social media generate for VARs and ISVs? Is it awareness only? Is it, engagement with prospects and clients? Is there a lead gen aspect? Is it all of the above, or is it like depends on the situation? So what are the outcomes social media can generate?
Jim, well, nowadays we update like constantly, and social media is the channel that we choose like that we are in the time that we are doing right now. So I believe that it's informative, that it makes your decision making, and it shouldn't be social media in a way that is like a colloquial language of what VARs and ISVs are capable to do through a reseller or somebody that is trying to use it and then use it on their best convenience for their customers. Acknowledge what the product is and what can do for you to get it in a better way. And that's what social media is there for. Just having a clear way to present that, or to like profile it or brand it to the clients. And that is really important, because it's, like you need to label and describe what is it in a way that they understand and see the capability of either software or either service or whatever we offer.
God, so is it in part establishing credibility, right, where you're unfiltered going with your message to your target audience, and they can hear from you and walk away and go, well, OSS data, they must know what they're doing. Am I understanding accurately what you're saying?
Yes, just credibility, but also, understand there's many like different components of the social media itself. Social media can be good when you are reaching for a service for your reputation part, to see exactly how we've been doing with other clients. So having that perspective, just not seeing the description from my end, is also for users that did it before and they grasp the experience that they had. So it's really important to keep that up as well, and to use that as a tool to give other users that, or maybe like users, like future users, a feedback from people that has been using it and how they feel about it. So it's like, like it's not like kind of emotional, it's just the experience that they had and that they are having with my product or service, that I can understand how can I apply it within my company and how that can improve me in a better way. So social media is like, I do believe is like has both sides, from the user perspective but also from the seller perspective. And it's something that needs to be cultivated in a way that is easier for both to interact and see what we can do and how can we get you better as a company.
Great, thank you. Karen, what would you add to that from an outcome standpoint? And what have you seen if you've observed VARs and ISVs doing this? Again, awareness, engagement, lead gen. What kind of things have you seen? What are results of social media when it's done well?
Jim, I see actually all three. I think that it's a tool when used, social media as a utility, when used correctly, really can, all three outcomes you can see very well. One thing I just want to point out is that if you have no followers, nobody's going to see anything to begin with. So the first thing that I would say is that with regard to prospects and clients, you need to find out where they're hanging out, right? Find out where they hang out and make sure that you're appealing to them on those channels specifically. And humanize your brand. When you're starting, I think being able to, the people run your brand and run VAR and ISV brands. So humanizing the brand out there on social will help you increase followers and increase engagement. And increasing engagement over time is really what helps for lead generation. Content is something else to pay strict attention to as well, because the content that you're putting out there needs to resonate with your audience. And in as such, drives traffic back to your website, which in turn helps increase with leads.
Great. And if I can expand or ask you to expand upon the element of humanizing your brand, like a pet peeve that I have is, and it happens at every trade show I go to, some exhibitor, all they say is, we're at fill in name of trade show, visit us at booth whatever. And like, that's it. And then, but I just saw recently an example of an RSPA member, and they had, their team at the booth, like they had hardware equipment and they were pretending like a golf swing or something like that. And they had that on a GIF. Is that an example, what they did of more humanizing rather than we are at this booth, be sure to visit our booth with no value attached? Is that what you mean when you say humanize?
Absolutely. So there's two things. So both have their place, right? So a solid post with no people, right, talking about an upcoming show. Well, the people aren't at the trade show yet, right? So in order to humanize it, short of having pictures of some of the staff creating posters to be at the show, I think a static photo at that point is fine. But yes, lending humanity to the brand actually, and a sneak peek under the hood, if you will, go ahead and put those carousel images together of actually people engaging with other people. at the show, and that really just lends a human element to your brand. I don't know any audience that isn't receptive to that, and if you can, at the same time, embrace kind of your core brand values at the same time, whether it's getting together, engaging with people, whatever it is.
This is 100%
I've
humans.
never.
Mm-hmm. Karen, and also like humanize, that part, I really like that word because it's like a colloquial language, I will say it. Social media is not something that you're gonna be really really formal using all of these words, if not explaining how you would use this on daily basis, or like how would be your approach to doing it. So it may be a video of you applying that and just talking like you and me are talking right now. The approach that you make with your client, or or prospect client, or whoever is interesting on your product or service, it feels like from that human side, instead of like promoting a scripted way, is an outcome that I really like, because people get involved and engaged on that as well.
Absolutely.
Great. No, thank you for that. Let me jump into, and Doreen, if you can take this one first, and Karen touched upon a little bit, right? A lot of times folks are talking about the channel. Should I do Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or TikTok or, whatever? What do VARs and ISVs need to understand before they start choosing where they're going to engage, where they're going to publish content, where they're going to do social media? What are some fundamental things they need to understand first?
Well, there is like that with channels, it's constantly changes, but I think they first need to start where people is looking for the service, or where they are looking for. So like just Karen said about the market, like where they are hanging out. So in my instance, I will go straight to the search engines where they are searching for, and then have informative material in there, something as I just said, with a language that they understand, what like the software does for you, or the ISPAs or the VARs can do for you, or and then after that, after you got a solid like platform with your profiles, with your like all of that, go and jump on social media. Because if you start with social media but like by itself, and you don't have like no base on any of those profiles first, then how you can like balance that out. And I believe that the social media is like, it has to be optimized, everything just from the profiles, but also those channels that are right here, like TikTok, Facebook, any of those interactions. Now, one thing that it gets really effective, it's like the small videos, a 30-second videos showing what they're doing in a language like you and I are speaking right now. And that can be used like in many channels like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Like you can advertise with those little videos in there. So, or you can use them in all of the channels. So it's really like what you create that content to have a really good base of background on it, and then go from there. And like also, I do like to blog. I do like to like write something about what's happening right now, and that's something that in your profile should be shared in all of your channels as well. So I try to connect everything at once, like that is like a circle that optimize it, whichever it comes from, but it's connected some way how, so to the other channels as well. So it's more like a creating a base, and then going through the channels itself, like that they are together. In this case, maybe a website that goes linked to those channels, and go from there, because that's when you escalate. Once you get this going, that you can start seeing return on investment, if you want to do it in a way that you want to do pay advertising for it. But you cannot do pay advertising before you establish a presence, before you start engaging. Yes. Reputation is a really important thing nowadays, and I really focus on that. Before you start anything, start asking your clients what's going on, how you feel about my product. Write it down. I create even QR codes like for like my clients. I say like, go just put it back on my phone, and then like show it to them, and just like link it, and the link takes them to the review, and say like, give me something. I want to know. I want to see your feedback, because that make me better. That make me learn. That make me see what I'm doing. So I believe that those things all work together to get a best outcome, and come like like in being proactive in social media.
Great, thank you. And so, Karen, what Doreen said there is, before you engage in social media, you kind of have to hug your data, right? Whether it's in the search engine data, or what pages are most popular, the topics on your site. Create content, like you said, 30-second videos and blog, and then engage with your clients to make sure you're speaking to them. What would you add to that in terms of what you recommend VARs and ISVs do before they start picking channels?
Well, so as I said before, the first thing I would do is find out where your audience is hanging out, okay? Because the one mistake that I see a lot of VARs and ISVs make is they think, okay, it's social media. I need to be on every single channel there is.
Right.
And then I'm going to appeal to multiple audiences and say the same thing on every single channel in the same exact way. And really, it's okay. Pick one or two, do them well. Pick one or two places where where potential clients or your brand can make maximum impact. For example, you find that LinkedIn is more used for business, right? More business services, more partners. So you're more likely to find large-scale partners on LinkedIn, and it's business-driven. Dorian was correct. 30-second reels with snippets of information is really the wave in the future of social media for right now. So you might find that short reels on Instagram with regard to some short product demo or product information resonates really well on Instagram with a reel, but it really wouldn't go over so well on LinkedIn. So the secret really is appealing to multiple segments simultaneously, but differently. And one size fits all approach really just doesn't work. Pick two and do it really well, and do it simultaneously for the audience that hangs on the utility.
Got it. And the good news is for VARs and ISVs, especially in our space where they're appealing to merchants, a lot of those merchants will have Facebook pages, Instagram pages, Twitter, potentially your TikTok. Just go through and figure out each of your key customers. Where do they have social? You're going to get to the end and it's going to be pretty clear like which one or two channels are most popular among those folks. You shouldn't guess. There's an exercise.
Yeah, and there's two more things, Jim, actually, that I think that everyone should keep in mind with regard to choosing channels and how to interact and where to be. And that is that other than just engaging and appealing to an audience, there's a few other things that you can achieve by being active or silent, if you will, on social. And that is, number one, keeping an eye on the competition, right? So knowing what your competitors are doing, they may be living on different channels. It's okay if you're not active there, but you can still listen, number one. And number two, for VARs and ISVs who are, who occasionally deal with maybe merchant issues or customer service issues, customer support issues, those may be on a different channel altogether. So it's really important to know where your audience hangs by which channel, and don't ignore the elements like customer service and customer support too.
Yeah. Great. Karen and Dorian, I have a couple more questions left for you, but first we're going to pause just for a moment to thank our sponsors who support the RSPA community and make this podcast and video series possible. Our platinum sponsor is Blue Star. Our gold sponsors are Brother, CoCard, Heartland, ScanSource, and Shift4. And again, registration is open for Retail Now 2022. Again, it's the Retail IT Channel's #1 trade show, education conference, and networking event. We're going to all be together at the Gaylord Palms in Orlando, July 24th through 26th. Retail Now is where the industry meets. And I do have to say, it just popped into my head about humanizing social media. This morning, I was in my office looking out the window. I had never seen this before. It was a bunny running back and forth, and he was like in a fight with some crows. And so I took some pictures, posted it on social media, and got some engagement out of that. So yeah, if you see something interesting, go ahead and share it, even if it's not like hard and fast business. Give some folks some insight into your life. I hope Karen's not, shaking her head. We can't see her, but maybe she's like, you shouldn't be posting about bunnies.
No, I saw your bunny post this morning. I believe I liked it as well, and it did make me laugh.
Good, thank you. I should have shot some video. It was very, very strange to see. And one of our RSP members responded, in this corner, weighing in at 7 ounces, right, to see these little beasts going back and forth at each other. So, all right, our time is limited. Couple questions left here on the Quick Take episode. And Karen, if you could take this one first, how do you recommend to VARs and ISVs, how should they allocate labor to execute on some of the things that we're talking about here and some of the things you'll talk about in your live lab, right? So should they dedicate internal labor, pay for external labor, right? Like outsource it? Or is it just adopting tools and then assigning somebody to do this with their left hand for social media publishing? How have you seen VARs and ISVs successfully allocate labor to get the right outcomes we're talking about?
Jim, that's a great question, and really it's a tricky one, but and the answer would definitely vary from VAR to VAR. I would say that the biggest thing to keep in mind, right, whether or not you outsource it or allocate resources, human capital internally, that is definitely just a personal choice. But what matters the most is that you're engaging on social media, posting content, and engaging with your audience regularly. So if you are very light on staff and you have a hard time coming up with content, that's okay. But at least if you're posting and engaging with regularity, say make it a habit to once a week, if that's all you have the time to do, that's okay. But it's the regularity matters more than sporadic activity once a month, once every 2 months, because you don't have the time or you're trying to decide that this content doesn't resonate, so let me take some time to come up with more. So regularity matters more. And a good content calendar, which everybody at this session is going to get a copy of, a content calendar, plan it out. Plan spontaneity is tough. However, when it comes to knowing time of day, day of week, and how many posts a week you should be making, there is a little bit of a secret sauce. And part of it is planning it out in advance, right? So taking whatever resources you have, and if you have a dedicated part-time person, for example, have that part-time person split their time between developing content that could be split up and used in multiple ways, and lay it out really nicely on a thought-out social media calendar so that you can vary the content by type, plan it out in advance. And again, even if it's only 2 posts a week, or you're only allocating 2 hours a day, 1 hour a day, or even a minute a day, it's done with some pattern and regularity so that your audience does get used to it. So you can make good and make use with whatever you have. But as far as doing it in-house or outsourcing it, that's really just a personal choice.
Got it. And Karen, you can't see this, and neither can folks who are just listening on audio, but I'm holding up our content calendar that we have for the RSPA, and then Chris Arnold, who's our director of marketing, he's the one who figures out from a social media standpoint. And before I ask Dorian to weigh in, if you produce a piece of content that is quality and thought leadership, you can share it more than once on social media, right? Like you can get a lot of mileage out of that thing. It's not, I posted it once on Twitter and it's gone forever.
Well, here's the thing, though. So what you can do with one piece of content, what I love about a content calendar, first of all, is it allows you to experiment a little bit, right? So as long as you're not driven, you can't be driven by fear. You need to be willing to experiment a little bit here and there with content type. But there's a couple of secrets to sharing it and sharing it longer and often. And that is you can chop up one piece into multiple segments, repost it, reshare it, and now that you have different venues by which you can make a 20-second reel about one point in the piece of content, and then you're sharing it in a different way. You can use different images on different social media types. One piece of content can go pretty far, which is also a huge help with limited resources.
Yeah, we can chop up this podcast, as you said, into a whole bunch of different, like if Dorian wanted to do it for OSS, a whole bunch of quotes from him, right? Video clips, you can transcribe it and do something like that. The big, the 10-cent word for that, a 10-cent phrase would be content disaggregation. In terms of taking a big piece of content and splitting it up. So, but Dorian, I want to get you to weigh in as well, because your organization, you're a reseller. You're smaller, you don't have the resources of some of these, giant companies out there. How do you allocate labor to be effective with social media? How much overhead is it? How do you tackle that? And what do you recommend to our listeners?
Okay, yeah, I want to do it from the resale perspective, because I think this is the best way to answer this question. And I want to, so there is 2 things, outsourcing, in-source. When you have that option to choose, there is bias on that, because if you do it in-house, I'm doing it now, I'm taking over in-house everything from creating the content, the articles from zero. So I can manage and I can be really micromanaging that my blogs got the right keywords and as are talking about the topic that I needed to be up to date, and I'm not paying a company to create that content that it could not be what I wanted for targeting. So that's something to consider if we're doing outsource. Outsource can be really helpful for editing purposes, for all of these other labor that it must be is time consuming, and you can avoid it, like for like example design, graphic design, if you need for your imagery or all of that type of stuff, you can use it that. But like to that point, to get like outsource company that takes your marketing over for a small company, you have to be really involved in house to like commit to the vision of what you wanna like show to the public and to the clients and stuff like that. So that will be on that. Yeah, I get a lot of people like want to get involved and offer me like, this is what we can do for your business, this is what I can do there. But from my perspective, I believe in that it's for a small company has to be from within the organization to start. And if it's smart to allocate some budget in outsource for these little things, that editing a video that takes some time, or for example, editing a proofreading a article that needs to be read that takes sometimes. If you can give that to a company and do that, and then you use that content for your like your own use and post it on your way, and making sure that it's accurate with your vision, I do it on that way, and that's what I'm doing, which has been working for now. But it takes a lot of commitment to get all the parts together
Yeah.
when you do it. And you can do it on the other way around, but that is always going to be biased, because it's an outside company doesn't know exactly what we want to focus on. For example, I do some blog like now for natural gas. Natural gas prices are skyrocketing. So what the people want to know is why this is happening, how this got like that. And so I write about that. I write an article this past week about natural gas, like saying why this is happening. So I let my clients know that this is what is happening in a way like that. Let's see if there is a marketing company is gonna take and gonna like get those ideas right there, right going when it's needed.
Yeah.
So that's something we need to compare and contrast with. The content is something it has to be take really meticulous. I am really detail oriented on that, because this is what gonna give me my outcome, and that the content
Yeah.
is really really important.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Dorian. There's some labor you can outsource, but you cannot outsource your brain. You have to be the one who says, here's the message. You know your customers well enough, even if you're not a social media or content expert. So, and so we're short on time. Karen, Dorian, hoping you can each take about maybe 30 seconds to answer this last question. So, we want people to attend your live lab at Retail Now, and that's going to be a great resource for VARs and ISVs to learn about social media. Karen, first, what is one or two other sources you would recommend for folks who want to learn more about social media best practices?
I have a couple of favorites. There are two large-scale social media groups on Facebook that are Facebook groups, and it's actually people, small businesses, and people that run small businesses that are in the trenches every single day, that share tips, tricks, and apps, online resources. There's two of those that I would go to. They're the largest ones if you do a search for social media groups on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of marketing props as well. Soup to nuts, anything marketing and
Marketing
social media
profs.
driven. Props, PROFS.
Yep. Got it. Great. Thank you for
Those
those.
are my two biggest.
Great. Dorian, in 30 seconds, what are your one or two resources you'd recommend?
Well, I do like blogging a lot, so I am in a few blogs, and those are free. It's people that is inspiring. So if you can find somebody or something that is blogging about your industry, it's great. Connected to that to see what they're doing, what's going on with our clients, even if it's not on your area, it's around like you say in other parts, but it that helps a lot. And actually local. When you are a small company, you have to resource local too to know what is going on, who needs like help, and that will be my two sources. Like for a small company perspective, that will be what I
Yeah,
believe is.
look in your industry, look in your local market and see what they're talking about, so you'll be up to speed. So wonderful. Well, that does it for this episode of the Trusted Advisor. We hope that you enjoyed our discussion. If you did, be sure to subscribe to the RSPA YouTube channel and the Trusted Advisor podcast so you never miss an episode. We'd also appreciate if you'd rate us wherever you find your favorite podcast. My personal philosophy is the more stars, the better. And be sure to register for Retail Now 2022. Again, that's July 24th through 26th at the Gaylord Palms in Orlando. Again, it's going to have a high-tech expo hall, plenty of networking opportunities, and several great education sessions, including the Retail Now Live Lab social media strategies that work. For all the details, visit the show at gorspa.org/Retail Now. Before we go, a big thanks again to Dorian and Karen for sharing their wisdom with us today. Thanks also to RSPA Director of Marketing and Strategic Partnerships, Chris Arnold, for his production work, Joseph McDade for our music, and last but not least, thanks so much to you for listening. Our goal at the RSPA is to accelerate the success of our members in the retail IT ecosystem by providing knowledge and connections. For more information, visit our website at gorspa.org. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, everybody.